In one of Giza's lesser-known tombs, archaeologists uncovered something that shouldn't be there. At least not where they found it. A red granite sarcophagus weighing multiple tons carved with such precision, it looks like it was shaped using tools we still can't fully explain. Here's the twist. Red granite isn't native to Giza, it comes from Aswan, nearly 500 miles away. And moving something that size through desert terrain over 4,000 years ago, that's a mystery in itself. What's even stranger is that the tomb it was found in is modest. No hieroglyphs, no grand decorations, nothing to suggest royal status. So why go through the trouble of placing a high-level granite sarcophagus in a site that doesn't match its value? Some believe it was repurposed or hidden deliberately. Others suspect it was placed there as part of a cover-up for a much older burial. Then there's the craftsmanship. The lid fits so perfectly you can't even slip a blade inside. Tool marks are nearly non-existent. It feels more like machining than chiseling. This level of precision is something modern builders associate with computer-guided equipment. How did ancient workers do it with copper tools and stone hammers? Theories range from lost ancient techniques to outside influence. Yes, including visitors from beyond. And just when you think it can't get weirder, it connects to another riddle carved not in stone but in the stars. Something extraordinary happened inside the Great Pyramid of Giza. Scientists used a particle physics method called muon scanning to peek deep inside the pyramid's core. What they found shocked everyone, a completely unknown massive void right above the Grand Gallery. It's not just a crack or a crevice, it's a chamber nearly 100 feet long, hidden in solid stone, untouched for over 4,000 years. No one has entered it, no tools have reached it, no robot has been able to see what's inside. It's completely sealed off from the known corridors. Why would the ancient builders go through all the trouble to hide such a large space, without leaving a single clue in any ancient texts or carvings? Some believe this chamber may be the true burial room of Pharaoh Khufu, still untouched and filled with unimaginable treasures. Others say it could be a decoy, a part of a larger security system meant to confuse tomb robbers. And then, there are the more daring theories, the ones that suggest this space was never meant for humans, that it might hold something older than the pyramid itself, something hidden on purpose. The structure and placement of the chamber don't match any known architectural logic. It's like it was inserted into the blueprint of the pyramid at the last moment, or left there for someone in the distant future. It feels less like a mistake and more like a message waiting to be decoded. The mystery has captured the attention of scientists, conspiracy theorists, and adventurers alike. Even Hollywood couldn't make this up. It's like something out of Indiana Jones. The fact that in 2025, we still don't know what's inside the world's most famous monument is wild. Egypt hasn't allowed excavation yet. Some say it's to protect the site, others whisper about secrets too dangerous to disturb. One thing is clear, whatever is hidden inside that chamber could change everything we thought we knew about the Great Pyramid, and maybe about ancient Egypt itself. Roughly 400 miles from Giza, etched into the ceiling of the Hathor Temple at Dendera, is a stone circle that continues to puzzle scholars. The Dendera zodiac isn't just decorative, it's an astronomical chart, but it shows constellations, star patterns, and figures that don't line up with typical Egyptian sky lore. In fact, some of the celestial symbols appear to come from Babylonian, Greek, and even unknown traditions. It's thought to represent the sky at a very specific moment in time. Some researchers argue it shows a planetary alignment that hasn't happened in thousands of years. Others believe it marks a cataclysm, or the rebirth of a lost civilization. The chart includes symbols of Aries, Taurus, Leo, and strange winged discs, some say even a comet. What was this really meant to track? The layout has an eerie precision. Some scholars believe it was a kind of encoded sky map, possibly tied to pyramid alignments or even celestial gateways. Fringe theorists go further, claiming it proves ancient Egyptians had access to knowledge far beyond their era, maybe even astronomical data passed down from pre-human civilizations. Whether it's a religious calendar, a cosmic warning, or something else entirely, one thing is clear. The Dendera zodiac feels less like ancient art and more like a message written in the language of the universe itself. And strangely, it might have something in common with another Egyptian mystery, eyes that seem to see in the dark. Tucked inside the dark chambers of the Valley Temple near the Sphinx, archaeologists uncovered a statue that's nothing short of haunting. It's Pharaoh Khafre, carved in solid diorite. But what truly grabs attention are the eyes. Originally inlaid with quartz and rock crystal, they weren't just decorative. In low light, they reflected light eerily, making the statue seem alive. Historians say it symbolized divine vision. But how did they manage to cut and set translucent stones with such precision? These crystal eyes are aligned so they give off a lifelike, shimmering gaze. Optical experts who've studied the structure agree, there's more going on here than just craftsmanship. Some even suggest the eyes were meant to harness or direct light, possibly as part of a ritualistic mechanism. This wasn't some forgotten experiment. Statues with similar eyes have been found elsewhere, but never with the same level of technical accuracy. Could these be remnants of a forgotten science, one that understood not just light and shadow, but how to manipulate perception itself? It's discoveries like this that make Egypt feel less like an ancient civilization, and more like a world where boundaries between religion, science, and illusion were blurred, possibly by design. And these blurred lines continue in the oldest written religious scripts on Earth. Deep inside the Pyramid of Unas, something remarkable covers the walls. Not treasure, not gold, but writing. Thousands of hieroglyphs cut directly into the stone. These are the pyramid texts, the oldest known religious writings in the world. Long before the Bible, the Quran, or the Torah, these inscriptions describe the journey of the soul, the heavens, and the rituals needed to reach the afterlife. But these aren't simple prayers. They talk about star paths, serpent ladders, and gods traveling through cosmic portals. Some sections sound more like a guidebook for navigating space than a religious hymn, and they weren't meant for the living. These texts were hidden away, never intended to be seen again once the tomb was sealed. Curiously, they don't follow a consistent order. Some scholars think they were pieced together from even older oral traditions. Others believe they were carefully arranged to form a kind of sacred code, only fully understood by Egypt's highest priests, or perhaps someone else entirely. No one knows who wrote them. No signatures, no author, just a system of symbols that still baffles translators today. And yet, they seem obsessed with stars, directions, gates, and ascension. It's as if the ancient Egyptians weren't just trying to honor the dead, but trying to send someone or something somewhere else. For decades, whispers of a hidden city below the sands of Giza have stirred the imagination, and in recent years those whispers have grown louder. Several ground-penetrating radar surveys, conducted by both Egyptian teams and independent researchers, have detected deep, symmetrical voids and grid-like patterns under the plateau. Not just isolated chambers, but something far more elaborate. Tunnels, rooms, massive connected spaces. Some researchers believe this could be the remains of a buried city, older than the pyramids themselves. Egypt's authorities have been cautious about digging too deep. Officially, it's to protect the plateau. Unofficially, some say it's because they don't fully understand what's down there. A 1978 report hinted at a multi-level structure beneath the Sphinx area. Since then, access to parts of that zone has been restricted. What are they trying to preserve or hide? There's even speculation, supported by ancient texts and modern scans, that the underground city once had its own water systems. One theory suggests the presence of a now-buried river, rich in iron deposits, possibly red in color, that ran beneath these structures. Many researchers believe this city could be pre-dynastic, built by a civilization whose records never made it into Egypt's official timeline. If confirmed, it would rewrite history as we know it. We're not just talking about a few chambers. This would be the largest underground archaeological discovery on Earth. A city buried beneath the most iconic monuments ever built, still waiting to be brought into the light. In southern Egypt, beside the Nile at Kom stands a temple unlike any other, dedicated to the crocodile god Sobek. And right next to it, archaeologists uncovered something that feels straight out of an ancient horror movie. A hidden pit filled with mummified crocodiles. Not one or two, but dozens, some small, others over 13 feet long, carefully wrapped, preserved, and buried beneath the temple floor. For centuries, this pit remained sealed. It was only in recent excavations that the vault was accidentally breached. Inside were rows of crocodile remains placed as offerings. Some were wrapped in linen and coated in resin, others were adorned with decorative markings. It's believed these weren't just animals. They were considered sacred vessels of Sobek himself. The ancient Egyptians believed these creatures were living representations of divine power, and their burial was a holy ritual. But here's where it gets even weirder. The pit's location was unknown even in later dynasties. No records mention it, no maps show it. It's as if it was hidden deliberately, its contents sealed off not just from looters but from time itself. And the chamber was designed in a way that muffled sound, even footsteps. Some researchers suggest it may have been used in ceremonial processions, where priests would perform silent rites over these beasts in the dark. Could this underground tomb have been part of a secret priesthood tradition, one hidden from the public eye? To this day, many of the crocodile mummies remain untouched, stored in special vaults in the museum beside the temple. Visitors can see them, but no one truly knows why this many were buried in a single spot, or what they were meant to protect or contain. There's something unusual pulsing beneath the Giza Plateau, and it's not a myth. In recent years, scientific teams using electromagnetic mapping equipment have detected strange anomalies deep under the pyramid complex. These aren't just natural quirks. In certain spots, especially near the Sphinx and between the Great Pyramid and Khafre's Pyramid, the fields spike dramatically without any visible source. It's as if something underground is still active. The readings are low frequency but stable, almost like a hum. Engineers say the energy could be caused by subterranean cavities filled with mineral-rich water or old copper conductors. But there's a problem. There's no solid evidence of such structures where the energy is strongest, and yet, the fields persist. This has led to all kinds of theories. Some believe the ancient builders used the pyramid as a kind of energy device, an amplifier that worked with the Earth's natural magnetic field. Others claim the site once housed something much older than dynastic Egypt, a power source lost to time. Even Nikola Tesla's name has been thrown into the mix, given how close his theoretical wireless energy systems align with the pyramid's layout and angles. To this day, the Egyptian government has not allowed deep drilling in the areas where the strongest fields were recorded. Skeptics say it's overblown. Supporters say the truth lies just a few feet below the surface. Either way, Giza isn't just stone and sand. Something's humming beneath it, and no one seems ready or willing to explain what. Beneath the necropolis of Saqqara, in long torchlit corridors, rest 24 massive granite boxes, each weighing up to 70 tons. Welcome to the Serapeum, a subterranean gallery originally thought to be the burial place of sacred Apis bulls. But these stone boxes don't quite match the story. They're too precise, too polished, and far too advanced for the supposed tools of the time. Each box is carved from a single block of granite. The interior is mirror smooth. The corners are sharper than what modern machinery typically achieves, and moving them into their tight underground niches would have required extreme precision, yet there's no record of how it was done. Some boxes are empty, others contain strange residues. A few show signs of extreme heat, as if something once inside burned its way out or left behind chemical traces we still don't understand. And then there's the question no one has answered: why so big, and why so hidden? While mainstream Egyptology maintains the Serapeum was for bull burials, alternative researchers suggest the boxes were used for something else entirely, maybe as energy containers, storage units for powerful relics, or something we can't even define. Whatever their purpose, the boxes feel wildly out of place. They're too advanced to explain with just copper tools and brute strength, and they continue to sit in silence beneath the sand. Massive puzzles in rooms built to keep them out of sight, maybe even out of mind. When the ancient Greek historian Herodotus visited Egypt, he claimed to have seen something even more astonishing than the pyramids: a colossal underground labyrinth near the city of Hawara. According to him, it had over 3,000 chambers, both above and below ground, filled with carvings, pillars, and secrets. It was so vast and complex that no visitor could see it all in a single day. Fast forward to the 20th century, and guess what? Archaeologists did find something beneath Hawara. Using ground-penetrating radar, they discovered a massive rectangular structure underground, larger than a football field, with intersecting walls and hollow corridors. But then, everything went quiet. The site was closed off, flooded with water, and official excavation halted. No one's been allowed to properly dig ever since. Some believe the Egyptian authorities are holding back due to structural instability. Others think there's something down there that changes everything. Could it be the records of a forgotten civilization? Or maybe the remnants of the true Hall of Records, often linked to Atlantis in fringe theories? We may never know. The labyrinth remains officially unexplored and buried under layers of sand, silt, and secrecy. But it's there, and it might hold more history than all the pyramids combined. Deep in the Egyptian Sahara, in a desolate area near the Gilf Kabir Plateau, explorers found a cave that shouldn't exist. Not in this place, not in this condition. It's called the Cave of the Beasts, and inside are over 8,000 rock paintings, many dating back more than 7,000 years. That's older than the pyramids, older than any known dynasty. And what they show? That's the real mystery. The paintings include people, animals, and what appear to be strange hybrid creatures, beings with long fingers, oversized heads, and bizarre limbs. Some look like they're floating, others seem to interact with objects that resemble orbs or discs. Even more bizarre are the negative handprints scattered around the cave like shadows frozen in time. Researchers agree the cave was a sacred site, but sacred to who? These weren't Egyptian gods. These weren't known animals. The style of the paintings is so different it feels like it came from a completely different culture, one that vanished long before Egypt rose. Some scientists think the figures may represent ancient shamans in altered states. Others suggest early contact with visitors from distant lands or even stars. Whatever the explanation, the cave remains one of the most unsettling prehistoric sites ever found in Africa. At the base of the Giza Plateau near the paws of the Sphinx, lies the Valley Temple of Khafra. Unlike the towering pyramids, this structure doesn't get as much attention, but it absolutely should. It's built from gigantic limestone and granite blocks, some weighing up to 200 tons, and they're fitted together with such precision you can't even slip a credit card between them. No one knows exactly how it was done. There are no inscriptions detailing the construction process. No records explaining how these megaliths were cut, transported, and stacked so cleanly. The stone shows signs of advanced shaping, polished surfaces, squared corners, tight seams. Modern engineers have said replicating it today would require cranes and laser-cutting tools. Some believe this temple predates the pyramid it sits next to. The erosion patterns on the limestone suggest it may have endured extreme weather, possibly dating back to a time when the Giza region was more tropical. If that's true, the temple could be thousands of years older than we thought, built by a civilization lost to history. And strangely, it doesn't feel like a tomb or a religious site. It feels like a machine, a functional building with a purpose we haven't figured out. What was it meant to protect or generate? Long before Stonehenge rose in England in the middle of Egypt's western desert, someone built a mysterious stone circle on the edge of an ancient lake. This site is called Nabta Playa, and it might be the oldest astronomical alignment ever discovered, dating back over 7,000 years. That's centuries before the pyramids, even before the wheel was invented. At first glance, it looks like a modest cluster of stones. But when researchers mapped the layout, they realized the circle aligns precisely with the summer solstice and certain star constellations, including Orion and Sirius, just like the Giza pyramids do later. Was this coincidence or part of a much older tradition? Nearby, archaeologists also uncovered buried megaliths arranged in lines that seem to track the movement of the sun and stars. They found human remains in shallow pits, surrounded by cattle bones and offerings, suggesting this was a spiritual or ritual site. But who built it? And where did they go? The builders of Nabta Playa vanished long before Egypt's first pharaoh. Some believe they were nomads who developed complex sky mapping techniques. Others think they were the ancestors of the pyramid builders, guardians of a lost knowledge passed down in secret. Either way, this desert calendar hints at a civilization that understood the sky better than we ever imagined. Now imagine standing in the middle of the Sahara and spotting massive fossilized vertebrae poking out of the sand. That's Wadi al-Hitan, also called the Valley of the Whales. This isn't just a fossil site, it's an entire seabed frozen in time, filled with the remains of enormous marine creatures that once ruled this land, back when Egypt was underwater. Here lie the bones of Basilosaurus, a 50-foot-long whale with teeth more like a crocodile's. It had tiny back legs, proof that whales once walked before they swam. Nearby are skeletons of Dorudon, sea cows, sharks, and even fish that have long since gone extinct. The bones are so well preserved, some still hold traces of stomach contents. But what makes this site strange isn't just its age or preservation, it's the question of why it's so concentrated here. Dozens of massive creatures, many lying in lifelike positions, all gathered in one place. Was this an ancient feeding ground, a sudden mass death event, or something else? To this day, Wadi al-Hitan offers one of the clearest snapshots of Earth's deep past, yet it sits quietly in the desert, far from the tourist crowds. Here, nature wrote its own version of history, one that predates pyramids, people, and even the land we now call Egypt. Just a stone's throw from the pyramids, tucked behind the Great Sphinx and buried under tons of sand, lies an eerie and forgotten place, the so-called Tomb of the Birds. Officially rediscovered in the early 2000s by explorers like Andrew Collins, this underground passage cuts deep into the bedrock and opens into a series of chambers, completely off-limits to tourists, and mostly absent from guidebooks. What was found inside raised more questions than answers. The tomb is believed to have once housed the mummified remains of strange avian creatures. Not just typical ibis or falcons, which were commonly buried in Egypt, but creatures with oddly shaped skulls and extended bone structures. Some theorists suggest they could be sacred hybrids or mutated animals kept for cultic rituals. Others go even further, proposing the birds weren't native to Egypt, or even Earth. Skeletal fragments were reportedly recovered before the chamber was resealed. Photos exist, but they are almost never released. What is clear is that this tomb was important. The walls were marked with signs of ancient activity, ceremonial burn patterns, and what appears to be deliberate sealing by stone blocks, like someone wanted it hidden permanently. Deep beneath Saqqara's sands, archaeologists opened a shaft that had been sealed for over 2,500 years. At the bottom, they discovered something astonishing: a golden coffin in pristine condition. Belonging to a man named Psamtik, possibly a high priest, the sarcophagus was covered in gold leaf and inscribed with sacred texts meant to guide the soul to the afterlife. But what made the find truly shocking was its isolation. No signs of looting, no collapsed walls, just one flawless burial, as if time itself had skipped over it. Some believe the tomb was hidden on purpose, protected by the sands and forgotten by design. Hundreds of relics surrounded the coffin: miniature statues, protective charms, and mysterious tools. One theory suggests Psamtik's burial was part of a secret priesthood tradition meant to preserve forbidden knowledge. In a land overflowing with legends, the coffin of Psamtik wasn't just a final resting place, it was a message buried in gold, waiting for the right time to be seen. Maybe that time is now.
British archaeological team has uncovered what appears to be the ancient city of Emet, a forgotten settlement buried beneath a massive artificial hill, or tell, in Egypt's Sharqiya province. At first glance, it seems like just another late-period discovery: mud brick houses, granaries, stables, a temple to the cobra goddess Wadjet, and ritual artifacts. Dated to the 4th century BC, the site fits neatly into Egypt's historical puzzle. But then came the deeper questions. Why would such a city be entirely buried beneath meters of soil and crushed rock? The tell stretches 1.5 kilometers in circumference. That's no ordinary settlement and no ordinary burial. The buildings aren't just weathered by time, some were smashed and crushed, with bricks strewn as if swept by a powerful force. One Ushabti figurine from the 26th dynasty was found shattered, along with a stele of Horus standing over crocodile symbols of protection. Or maybe a warning. Traditionally, tells are thought to form gradually mud brick buildings collapse over centuries, creating layered mounds. But that only explains soft sediment. How do you account for the presence of gravel, stone, and heavier material packed tightly into the site? Was it a catastrophic mudslide? A flood? A storm that buried the city in a single night? Other sites show the same strange layering even around the step pyramid of Djoser. Some researchers now believe many ancient Egyptian cities weren't just lost to time, they were suddenly and violently buried, possibly by natural disasters we still don't fully understand. LiDAR scans like those used to uncover lost Mayan cities are now revealing buried structures under these mounds, indistinguishable from natural hills. Is it possible that Emet wasn't abandoned, it was erased? Across temples and tombs in Egypt, there's something quietly strange that most tourists never notice. Perfectly round holes drilled straight into some of the hardest stones on Earth: granite, basalt, quartzite. Not chiseled, not hammered, drilled. And not in random places either. We're talking precision placement, spiral grooves, and deep cuts that suggest rotational force. At sites like Abu Rawash and the unfinished obelisk in Aswan, these strange marks appear again and again. Some of the holes are smooth as if machined. Others show spiral patterns that seem too refined for copper tools and sand. Mainstream archaeologists credit them to patient manual labor. But there's a problem: even modern steel tools would struggle to replicate this clean finish. A few engineers who examined the marks said they look identical to modern core drilling techniques, the kind used today in construction and industrial design. Which raises the big question: what tools were the ancients actually using? No electric machines have ever been found from ancient Egypt. But maybe we're not looking in the right way. If the tools were made from materials that decayed or were recycled, the evidence would be long gone. Some theorists suggest sonic or vibrational tools. Others propose lost alloys harder than bronze. Even if you don't buy into the idea of forgotten tech, one thing's hard to deny: these holes shouldn't exist the way they do. They hint at something far more advanced or lost. Walk into the Osirian temple and something instantly feels off. It's sunken deep below ground level, surrounded by water, and built from megalithic blocks far larger than what's seen in nearby structures. Massive granite stones, some weighing over 60 tons, fitted together with almost no space between them. The problem? This structure doesn't match the era it's supposed to belong to. Mainstream Egyptology places the Osirian in the reign of Seti I, around 1290 BCE, because it's located right behind Seti's temple. But look closely and the construction styles clash completely. Seti's temple is ornate, refined, and full of inscriptions. The Osirian is raw, brutal, and far older in appearance. It's like comparing an Apple store to a medieval fortress, same location, totally different eras. No inscriptions cover the Osirian's stone walls. That's highly unusual in Egypt, where nearly every surface was filled with names, prayers, and power. Here, nothing. Just massive, silent stones, weathered by time and surrounded by groundwater. Some researchers believe the Osirian predates Seti by thousands of years, that it was an ancient site reused by later pharaohs, much like the Sphinx may have been. Others go further, suggesting it belonged to an unknown civilization with knowledge of advanced engineering long before the dynasties we recognize. One thing's clear, the Osirian breaks the timeline. It doesn't fit, and in a country where almost everything is labeled and explained, this structure remains a silent enigma, hidden in plain sight. In 2012, a wooden coffin was unearthed in the Egyptian necropolis of Deir al-Barsha. Inside, faded ink and lines carved into the wood revealed something jaw-dropping: the oldest known copy of what's called the Book of Two Ways, a cryptic map of the ancient Egyptian underworld. It's not just a collection of texts or prayers, it's a literal diagram showing two winding paths, one of fire, one of water, that a soul must travel to reach the afterlife. The layout resembles a board game full of gates, obstacles, and strange guardians. Unlike the more famous Book of the Dead, this map doesn't just describe the journey, it shows it. Like an ancient GPS for the soul. The coffin belonged to a woman, but the map was once thought to be reserved for male priests. That twist alone raises questions: how many of these maps have we missed? How many were simply erased by time? What makes it even stranger is its sudden reappearance after being lost for centuries. The details match no other known artifact of its kind, suggesting that there were multiple versions, each personalized, perhaps each hiding secret knowledge passed down only to the initiated. It's part mythology, part engineering diagram, and part cosmic riddle. And it quietly hints that the Egyptians may have seen the afterlife not as an abstract concept, but as a place with a real structure, real geography, and real danger. Tucked away in rarely visited halls of the Egyptian Museum in Cairo are a handful of artifacts that don't appear in most tourist brochures: elongated skulls, with shapes that don't match the typical human form. Some are said to come from Amarna-era tombs. Others, their origins unclear. None are prominently labeled. They don't show signs of violent trauma or damage. Instead, the skulls appear naturally stretched, long, smooth, and symmetrical. Theories vary. Some say it's the result of cranial binding, an ancient cultural practice seen in other parts of the world. But not everyone's convinced. Amarna was home to some of Egypt's strangest art portraits of Akhenaten and his family, with almond eyes, thin limbs, and oddly shaped heads. Critics said it was symbolic, but if these skulls match those portraits, what were the artists really trying to depict? The museum doesn't advertise these skulls, and only a few researchers have been allowed to study them closely. Are they simply rare examples of ritual deformation, or physical traits of a now extinct noble bloodline? In the end, it's not just about the bones themselves, it's the silence surrounding them. The fact that such unusual specimens exist but are kept on the fringes adds a whole new layer of mystery to Egypt's royal past. Beneath the towering presence of the Great Sphinx, there are rumors of a secret chamber, one that some people believe could totally change everything we know about human history. Known as the Hall of Records, this mysterious vault is said to contain scrolls, artifacts, and, well, even technology from a forgotten civilization that came long before the pharaohs. The idea isn't exactly new. It gained worldwide attention when the mystic Edgar Cayce claimed the Sphinx guarded a library of knowledge hidden beneath its paws. At the time, it honestly sounded like pure fantasy. But later, ground-penetrating radar studies did reveal anomalies beneath the Sphinx's body rectangular voids that haven't yet been fully explored. Officially, there's no chamber, Excavations haven't confirmed anything significant, but questions remain. Why do older photos show sealed doorways and masonry lines near the Sphinx's base? Why were some early expeditions to the area halted or locked behind restricted access? Some researchers believe the chamber, if it exists, could predate dynastic Egypt by thousands of years. The Giza Plateau may have been selected not because of its geography, but because of what lay buried beneath it. And then there's the Osiris Shaft, a multi-level tunnel system located just steps from the Sphinx. It descends more than 90 feet into the bedrock, ending in a water-filled cavity containing a black basalt sarcophagus. No one knows what's below it. No one knows what it was really for. All signs point downward, whether it's an ancient time capsule, a burial chamber, or something else entirely. The vault below Giza continues to draw attention, not because of what we've found, but because of what we haven't been allowed to. A strange image once circulated online of pyramids surrounded by scaffolding, with its top seemingly being assembled before the base was completed. At first, everyone thought it was just a clever digital rendering, a twist on how we usually think about ancient construction. But that image tapped into something deeper, an idea that's been quietly gaining traction. What if the Great Pyramid wasn't built the way we think? The standard theory involves ramps, thousands of workers, decades of hauling multi-ton blocks. It's dramatic, sure, but the logistics raise some serious questions. There's no clear evidence of a ramp large enough to support that kind of project. And the precision. The pyramid's orientation is nearly perfect to true north, something even modern builders would have to carefully calculate. Some alternative researchers believe the pyramids weren't built from the ground up, but rather assembled using a lost method, possibly with cast stone technology or tools we no longer understand. There's even a fringe theory suggesting geopolymer science, basically. Stone poured into molds. Sounds wild, but studies on the microstructure of some blocks have hinted at the possibility. And if that's true, the entire concept of pyramid construction flips upside down literally. What if those massive limestone blocks weren't hauled at all? What if the ancients had a way to pour and shape stone like advanced three-dimensional printing with ancient chemistry? It would explain the fit, the speed, and the finish. Maybe that viral image wasn't a fantasy. Maybe it was a clue. Tutankhamun's tomb is small compared to other royal burials. For a pharaoh who ruled during a golden age, it seems rushed, almost temporary. That alone raised eyebrows. But in 2015, something extraordinary happened. Radar scans of the tomb's north wall revealed something unexpected, a hidden void, a space that didn't show on any maps. Some experts believe it's an untouched chamber, possibly part of a larger burial complex. One theory quickly took over headlines that this room could hold the long-lost tomb of Queen Nefertiti. Nefertiti, Akhenaten's powerful and mysterious wife, vanished from the records late in her life. No confirmed burial has ever been found. Some believe she may have ruled Egypt under a different name. Others think her tomb was hidden, deliberately sealed away to protect her legacy. What's strange is how the discovery stalled. After initial enthusiasm, all talk of excavating the chamber quieted down. Access was denied. The scans were questioned. The wall was left untouched. But the clues are everywhere. The layout of Tutankhamun's tomb mirrors that of a queen's. The decorative patterns stop abruptly at the very wall where the chamber is believed to be. It's as if someone plastered over a passage and hoped no one would notice. So far, no one's broken through the wall, not publicly at least. But if Nefertiti lies behind that golden barrier untouched, unspoiled, it could be the most important archaeological find in modern history. And it might be right behind the paint. Back in 2014, deep in the sands of Abydos, a discovery sent, well, quiet shockwaves through the world of archaeology. A tomb was found not belonging to any famous ruler, but to someone most folks had never even heard of, Pharaoh Wasaribre Senebkai. Up until that moment, he didn't show up in any king list. No monuments, no legacy, just silence. The burial chamber itself was pretty modest. The sarcophagus had been looted way back in antiquity, and a lot of the bones were just scattered around. But the inscriptions? They were clear Senebkay had ruled. And not just by himself, he seemed to be part of a totally unknown royal line, which we now call the Abydos dynasty. Turns out Egypt's history had a missing chapter. Senebkay's burial revealed more than just a forgotten name. It exposed a time of political chaos when local kings ruled in isolation while the central government was just, falling apart. His cartouche, which was carved into a reused sarcophagus lid from another pharaoh, really suggested desperation. a dynasty cut off from resources but still hanging on to tradition. Honestly, it's kind of like finding an unlisted king in a sealed vault, hidden from the spotlight for thousands of years. And the wild thing is, he wasn't alone. Excavations since then have uncovered several other burials that hint at a shadow dynasty, quietly governing while the rest of Egypt was in total turmoil. Makes you wonder how many more rulers were erased from the official timeline? And what else is just waiting beneath the sand? Unsigned and unknown. So, Herodotus once described something he called the Labyrinth of Hawara, and he said it was greater than all the pyramids combined. A sprawling maze with, get this, 3,000 rooms half above ground, half below. He claimed he saw it with his own eyes. For centuries, people just dismissed the whole thing as an exaggeration. I mean, nothing of that scale had ever been found near the Fayum Oasis. But then, modern surveys, satellite imagery, and ground-penetrating radar changed the game. They revealed something massive just beneath the surface, a whole grid of solid structures and voids, way bigger than any nearby ruins. Parts of the surface structure were destroyed ages ago, probably used as quarries. But underground, it's still there. Researchers now think the maze was part of a funerary complex built by Pharaoh Amenemhat III. Some folks even speculate it was a kind of ancient data vault holding scrolls, artifacts, or maybe even maps we haven't uncovered yet. The scale is just staggering, and the layout, based on what little has been mapped, doesn't really follow any typical temple design. It's more like, an ancient hard drive, corridors, sealed chambers, hidden compartments. It was clearly designed to confuse and protect. Despite all this, excavations have slowed down. The area is still mostly untouched. If the labyrinth exists as described, it's honestly one of the largest unexplored structures in the ancient world. And it's buried, just waiting. Right beneath the dust of history, Egypt might be hiding its greatest monument. Alright, so everyone knows the Great Sphinx, but not many people realize just how many mysteries are tucked inside and underneath it. Over the past century, explorers, engineers, and even national authorities have documented sealed shafts, empty chambers, and stone blocks that really hint at deeper passageways. The most famous is probably the so-called door beneath the Sphinx's paws. It's this rectangular cavity, documented in old photos from the 1920s and checked out again during later surveys. It was covered up, then sealed. What's behind it? Nobody really knows. Officially, it's just natural, unimportant. But honestly, the structure looks carved, not shaped by erosion. Multiple seismic surveys have picked up hollow spaces beneath the Sphinx. Not just cracks or sinkholes, we're talking geometric voids. Some folks believe they could lead to a chamber or maybe even a stairwell beneath the monument. Yet, despite all the interest and potential, no formal excavation has ever gone through those layers. And it's not just under the paws either. There's a shaft at the rear of the Sphinx that leads right into the body itself, a passage that was filled in a long time ago. Was it a tomb, a ritual chamber, or heck, something totally different? The Sphinx doesn't offer any answers, just silence. Towering over Giza with its missing nose and that gaze fixed forward, it's been guarding its secrets for thousands of years. And if those doors are ever opened, maybe, just maybe, we'll finally learn why it was placed there to begin with. Beneath the sands of Saqqara, there's a tunnel complex that feels more like a science fiction set than an ancient tomb. It's called the Serapeum, and what's inside continues to puzzle engineers, archaeologists, and honestly, just about anyone who sees it up close. Carved into solid limestone, the passages lead to a series of side chambers. Each one holds a massive stone box, over 20 of them, made of solid granite or diorite. Some of these sarcophagi weigh over 70 tons, with lids alone weighing 30. And they weren't just dumped in, They were placed with precision, inside tight enclosures with barely an inch of clearance on all sides. The official explanation? These were burial vaults for the sacred Apis bulls, animals worshipped in the ancient Egyptian religion. But if that's true, the construction seems strangely excessive. Why use the hardest materials available transported from quarries hundreds of miles away just to entomb livestock? The boxes themselves are cut with such perfection that modern stonemasons struggle to explain it. The inner corners are razor sharp. The surfaces are polished smooth. One engineer described the finish as machined. These weren't rough-hewn tombs, they were deliberate, advanced, and designed to last forever. Some speculate that the Serapeum wasn't built for bulls at all, that it may have served another purpose entirely, a kind of vault, an energy containment system, or something ceremonial we no longer understand. And then there's the acoustics. In the silent dark, any sound bounces and vibrates in strange, unnatural ways. Some researchers claim the space feels engineered for resonance. Whatever the truth is, the Serapeum doesn't follow the rules of ordinary tombs. It sits in the dark, cold and still, just waiting for someone to figure out what it was really built for. High on the ceiling of a side chamber in the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, there's a carving that doesn't look like anything else in Egyptian art. It shows a shape like a long, curved bulb, with what appears to be a snake or filament inside. At the base is a lotus flower, and behind it, a human figure holding what looks like a cable or rod. To some, it looks unmistakably modern, like a light bulb connected to a power source. This carving, often called the Dendera light, has sparked debate for decades. Traditional scholars interpret it symbolically. The snake represents energy or rebirth, and the lotus symbolizes creation. But others see something more literal. Could this be a memory or depiction of ancient electrical knowledge? Of course, no wires, batteries, or sockets have ever been found in Egypt. But there's something unusual about this part of the temple. The chamber is deep inside, with no windows. And in many places like this across Egypt, black soot from torches is strangely absent from the ceilings. So how did they illuminate the walls while carving? Some researchers point to the Baghdad battery, a real artifact found in Iraq, that may have been capable of generating a small electric charge. Others believe ancient Egyptians experimented with simple electrochemical tools long before the modern concept of electricity existed. Could it be symbolic? Sure, but then why does it look so similar to something we invented thousands of years later? The Dendera temple holds many mysteries, but this single carving overlooked by most continues to raise the possibility that the past was far more advanced than we ever imagined. In the Temple of Seti I at Abydos, carved high on a beam above a doorway, is a set of symbols that shouldn't exist. To the untrained eye, they look astonishingly familiar, a shape resembling a helicopter, another like a modern jet, and even one that some say looks like a hovercraft. These carvings are now famous online as the Abydos helicopter glyphs. At first glance, it's tempting to jump to wild conclusions. Time travel? Ancient visitors with flying machines? Did someone carve futuristic shapes into a temple over 3,000 years ago? The official explanation is far more grounded. Egyptologists say the carvings are the result of palimpsest, a kind of ancient inscription layering. First, hieroglyphs from Seti I's reign were carved into the beam. Years later, under his son Ramses II, the stone was recarved with new symbols. Over time, as plaster eroded, the two sets of glyphs overlapped in strange ways, accidentally creating shapes that resemble modern aircraft. But here's the twist: these shapes don't appear anywhere else in the temple. And they're placed high up, well above eye level, not something you'd casually scratch in. Maybe it is coincidence. Or maybe, just maybe, it's another case where something from the past looks a little too much like something from our future. And that's why people keep staring at that stone, not for answers, but because it asks the right kind of questions. On the surface, the Black Pyramid at Dashur looks like a failure. Its sides are sunken, its structure crumbling. Made of mud brick with only a limestone casing, it was once a towering symbol of the Middle Kingdom. Now it resembles a weathered hill. But what's underneath may be far more impressive than what's above. Built by Pharaoh Amenemhat III, the Black Pyramid was one of the first royal tombs designed with multiple internal chambers, decoy rooms, and a dual burial system for the king and his queens. Its interior is a maze of corridors, blocked passages, and hidden compartments, engineered with traps and misdirection to protect something deeper inside. Even in its ruined state, the architecture inside has advanced a sharp contrast to its outer decay. Some sections were reinforced with wood, copper, and stone in complex ways. And at the center lies a large, sealed core, a structure few have entered, and even fewer have studied fully. The Black Pyramid might look broken, but it still holds its secrets buried in the dark, waiting for someone to solve the riddle from within. Archaeologists exploring an ancient alabaster quarry stumbled upon something unexpected, a 4,500-year-old ramp system carved directly into the stone. Not just a simple incline, but an engineering layout that looked oddly advanced for its time. A central ramp flanked by two staircases, each lined with rows of post holes. This wasn't built by chance. The layout suggested a system where ropes and wooden posts worked together to pull huge stone blocks up steep slopes, a method that could have reduced the need for endless slave labor and thousands of workers dragging stones across the desert floor, like in those tired Hollywood scenes. These ramps weren't aimed at building the Great Pyramid itself, but they were dated to the same era and clearly designed to move large blocks of heavy stone, the kind used in massive projects like pyramids. What's striking is how steep the incline would have been. Experts say it was far steeper than what was previously believed possible in ancient construction. That raised eyebrows. Some researchers whispered that this wasn't just clever engineering. It might be evidence of a construction system so effective it was deliberately forgotten, buried under centuries of sand and silence. And that's where the theory deepens. Why hadn't anything like this been found near the Great Pyramid before? Was it destroyed? Hidden? Or was it never there because the true method was something else entirely? Something so unconventional that the ramp was only one part of a much broader, more secretive method. Some believe the ramp system connects to a broader idea that the Egyptians might have combined basic mechanical principles with now lost materials, lubricants, or even resonance techniques. There's even quiet chatter among fringe theorists about vibrational lifting and anti-gravity experiments, the kind of topics that usually get dismissed outright. Still, even respected Egyptologists admit that this find challenges the idea that only brute strength and manpower were responsible. One of the most overlooked ideas in the pyramid construction debate is also one of the most practical. What if the ancient Egyptians didn't just rely on brute force, but on clever mechanics? Simple machines arranged in smart ways. The mechanical lever theory suggests they might have used a combination of levers, pulleys, balance systems, and counterweights to move massive blocks with minimal manpower. This isn't about modern machinery or advanced technology. It's about physics and the possibility that the Egyptians had mastered the kind of practical engineering we still rely on today, in cranes and forklifts. Think of it this way. Even the heaviest stone loses much of its weight if you use a long enough lever and a strong enough fulcrum. Add a few well-placed ropes, wooden rails, and pivot points, and you're no longer dragging stone, you're steering it. The theory proposes that multi-ton blocks could have been walked into place using lever arms and coordinated lifting, or even lowered into position by carefully controlled counterweight systems. In controlled trials by modern engineers, small teams have used simple replicas of these tools to lift multi-ton stones with surprising efficiency, no need for thousands of men or supernatural strength. There's even speculation that the pyramid's own steps were part of the process. As the structure rose layer by layer, workers could have lifted stones from one level to the next using pivoting levers and gravity-assisted shifts. It may sound slow, but it's repeatable, scalable, and incredibly effective. So why isn't this idea more accepted? Maybe because it lacks the visual drama of slaves hauling blocks across the desert, or aliens descending with anti-gravity rays. But Occam's razor leans toward simplicity, and if this theory is right, the real marvel isn't some lost civilization with advanced tech. It's that the Egyptians solved a colossal engineering problem using basic materials and sharp minds. The levers may be long gone, but the logic remains. Maybe the pyramids weren't built with force, but with finesse. Just beyond the towering grandeur of the Great Pyramid lies something far less glamorous, but maybe even more revealing: the ruins of a vast workers' village known as Hayt el Ghurab. Buried for thousands of years and only uncovered in recent decades, this dusty sprawl of mud brick buildings is turning the old pyramid building story on its head. We've all seen the same old image lines of beaten down slaves dragging stones through the sand, building the pyramids under the whip. But the evidence found here paints a different picture. Archaeologists unearthed bakeries with industrial-sized ovens, storage rooms, and living quarters that weren't just functional, they were planned, structured, and maintained. It looks less like a labor camp and more like a highly organized workforce base. Thousands of people, feeding schedules, water systems, medical supplies. This was a city with a purpose. In one section, the remains of a butchered cow suggest that pyramid laborers were eating surprisingly well beef, fish, and even dates and bread. Their diet was better than most common people at the time. These weren't starving slaves. They were skilled workers, masons, engineers, cooks, each with a role in something much bigger than themselves. And yet, despite the proof, the myth of slave labor persists. Maybe it's just a more dramatic story. But the reality may be even more incredible. These people weren't just working for a paycheck or out of fear. Many probably saw it as a divine duty, a sacred job that connected them to the gods and their pharaoh. Even more curious, some of the tombs nearby believed to belong to foremen and senior workers are carved with respect. They show pride, craftsmanship, and even family lineages. These weren't nameless laborers, they were remembered. The city itself had streets, districts, and planning a blueprint for how to build something as complex as a pyramid without descending into chaos. So, while the pyramids may be the monuments we see, Hayt El Ghurab is the ghost city that powered them, a place hidden in the shadow of history's greatest stone mystery. At the very tip of the Great Pyramid, something crucial is missing. What was once the crowning point of the structure, the capstone, is gone, and no one knows exactly when or how it disappeared. What we do know is that this final piece wasn't just decorative. It held symbolic and possibly functional power, and according to ancient accounts, it may have once gleamed with gold. Today, the top of the Great Pyramid is flat, roughly 30 feet across, with no sign of its original point. Early travelers wrote of a shining apex visible from miles away. Some even claimed it reflected sunlight so strongly it could be seen like a beacon on the horizon. If true, that would suggest a capstone plated in electrum, a natural alloy of gold and silver, both sacred metals in ancient Egyptian culture. But where did it go? And why are there so few records of it? Photos from the early 20th century show the flat summit, already stripped. There's no capstone in any museum, no solid remains of it buried nearby. Some believe it was removed long ago by treasure hunters or crumbled during an earthquake. Others suggest it was never fully placed, either due to engineering limitations or last-minute decisions during construction. Then there are the theories, the ones that say the capstone was never ordinary at all. Some fringe researchers believe it may have served a function beyond symbolism, possibly acting as an energy conductor, part of a larger system that's been lost to time. Sound far-fetched? Maybe, but the absence of even fragments continues to puzzle experts. For a civilization obsessed with preserving the afterlife in stone, the complete disappearance of such a vital element is more than a little strange. Inside the Great Pyramid, narrow channels snake their way from the so-called King's and Queen's chambers out toward the sky. Officially labeled as air shafts, these passages are too small for a person to crawl through, and their real function remains one of the pyramid's most enduring mysteries. But some researchers believe they point to something far more cosmic, a celestial map carved in stone. Each shaft is angled precisely, and modern measurements show that they line up with key stars in the night sky, or at least they did thousands of years ago. The northern shaft from the King's Chamber is aligned with Thuban, the ancient North Star at the time of the pyramid's construction. The southern shaft aligns with Orion's Belt, a constellation closely associated with Osiris, the god of the afterlife. Coincidence? It's hard to believe. These aren't random tunnels. They're deliberate, targeted, and angled with such precision that many believe they were designed to channel something, whether it was spirit, energy, or just light. One theory suggests the shafts served as a kind of spiritual ladder, guiding the pharaoh's soul to specific stars. In the ancient Egyptian belief system, these celestial bodies weren't just lights in the sky, they were gods. And aligning the pyramid with them wasn't decorative. It was sacred geometry in its purest form. What deepens the mystery is that the Queen's chamber shafts don't even reach the outside. They stop short, sealed off by stone blocks. When tiny robotic probes were sent into these passages, they discovered a hidden door, and behind it, another chamber no human had ever seen. What's behind that door is still unknown. Some say it's nothing. Others believe it could hold keys to the pyramid's original purpose. Whatever the truth is, these shafts prove one thing: the builders of the Great Pyramid weren't just stacking rocks. They were reaching for the stars, and they may have known far more about the heavens than anyone expected. In the heart of the Great Pyramid, above the so-called King's Chamber, lies something no explorer ever expected, and no one has seen with their own eyes. In a stunning breakthrough, a team of scientists using muon scanning technology discovered a vast, unexplored void buried deep within the stone structure. It's a space larger than any other chamber in the pyramid, and it appears to be completely sealed off from all sides. This discovery wasn't made with shovels or drones. It was revealed by cosmic particles, subatomic muons that pass harmlessly through stone, allowing researchers to see inside the pyramid without disturbing a single block. The project, known as scan pyramids, confirmed the chamber's existence in multiple scans, ruling out measurement errors. What they found was a cavity at least 100 feet long, sitting directly above the king's chamber where the pharaoh's sarcophagus rests. The purpose of this hidden space? Still a mystery. Some think it's simply a structural void, relieving pressure from above. But that doesn't quite match the size or symmetry. Others suggest it could be an undiscovered passage, or even a hidden room filled with ancient materials, scrolls, or objects buried by the original builders and untouched for over 4 millennia. What's strange is how quiet the official response has been. Despite the global attention, no expedition has been launched to physically explore the space. No plans for a drill, no probes, just silence. That's led to plenty of speculation. Some whisper that the chamber has already been explored in secret. Others believe it contains knowledge considered too dangerous or too disruptive to share. The truth is, this chamber is real. It exists. It's been confirmed with modern science. And yet it remains completely out of reach, a perfectly preserved mystery locked inside the world's most iconic structure. As of now, it's a sealed room inside a sealed monument, waiting for someone brave enough or curious enough to open it. Tucked away in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, there's a slab of stone that almost no one talks about yet. It may hold one of the most explosive claims in Egyptology. Known as the inventory stela, this weathered artifact casually states that Pharaoh Khufu didn't build the Sphinx. He merely restored it. That statement alone honestly throws everything into question. According to mainstream history, Khufu ruled during Egypt's Old Kingdom around 2600 BCE, and he's the one credited with commissioning the Great Pyramid. The Sphinx, believed to represent his son or his reign, is generally dated to the same period. But the inventory stela says otherwise. It describes the Sphinx and a nearby temple as already ancient in Khufu's time. That would push the Sphinx's origin back by thousands of years to a time before Egypt even had a written language. The stela doesn't look like much. It's small, chipped, and dismissed by many scholars as a later forgery or ceremonial inscription. But even if it was carved centuries after Khufu, it could have been based on older oral or written traditions that were still alive. And that's what makes it so interesting. It's a quiet contradiction to the official story one hiding in plain sight. And the idea that the Sphinx is older than the pyramids isn't limited to this artifact. Geological studies of the Sphinx's body show patterns of erosion more consistent with rain than desert winds, suggesting it may have stood through a much wetter era long before recorded history. No one's rewriting textbooks yet. But the inventory stela remains in the museum, behind glass, quietly challenging the entire timeline of ancient Egypt. Whether it's a misinterpretation, a forgotten tradition, or a suppressed truth, it opens a door to a past that may go deeper and much older than we're taught to believe. Beneath the Giza Plateau, not far from the Great Sphinx, there's a place that even many visitors to Egypt never hear about. It's called the Osiris Shaft, a deep vertical tunnel system that descends into total darkness. What lies at the bottom has stirred endless curiosity, a series of underground chambers, one stacked beneath another, leading to a final room submerged in water. The entrance to this shaft is discreet, almost hidden near the causeway that connects the Sphinx to the Pyramid of Khafre. From the surface, it looks like little more than a hole in the ground, but descend inside as a few researchers and tour groups have, and the structure reveals its true scale. The shaft drops over 100 feet, with multiple chambers carved into the rock at varying depths. Wooden ladders now assist in the descent, but it's definitely not for the faint of heart. Air gets thinner, walls grow colder, and the silence feels unnatural. The lowest chamber, always partially flooded, contains a massive granite sarcophagus in a surrounding moat, cut with eerie precision. No human remains have ever been found inside, and no clear explanation has ever been given for what the space was truly for. Officially, it's described as a symbolic tomb, dedicated to the god Osiris, the ruler of the underworld. But that interpretation only adds to the questions. Why build such a complex structure underground, where it couldn't be seen or visited easily? The depth and craftsmanship suggest it wasn't a random burial site. It was planned, engineered. Some have speculated that it served as an initiation chamber, a place of spiritual transformation, or even as a concealed vault meant to preserve something important through ages of turmoil above ground. Then there's the location. The shaft sits almost perfectly in line with other mysterious features around the Sphinx and pyramids, adding to theories that Giza's monuments were part of a unified system, something more than just tombs. Whether it was a temple, a trap, or a tunnel to secrets we've yet to uncover, the Osiris shaft remains one of the most physically real and strangely ignored enigmas on the plateau. It's one of the strangest and honestly most persistent alternative theories out there, but the more you look into it, the less ridiculous it starts to sound. What if the Great Pyramid wasn't a tomb at all? What if it was a machine, more specifically, a massive hydraulic pump designed to harness water pressure? This theory, which was once dismissed outright, is now gaining interest among engineers and independent researchers. It's built on a curious observation: the internal structure of the pyramid, especially the Grand Gallery, kind of resembles certain mechanical components used in fluid dynamics. Add to that the strange airtight construction of several chambers, and the existence of narrow shafts that may have been part of a pressure system, and, well, the pyramid starts to look a lot less like a burial site and more like an engine. One version of the theory suggests that water from the Nile, or maybe from natural aquifers below the plateau, was channeled into the pyramid. As pressure built within a sealed series of chambers, it could have forced water upward through the pyramid's interior, possibly as part of an ancient irrigation system, or, something even more complex. The result? A machine that pulsed with the Earth's rhythms, cycling water through stone, perhaps for ritual, energy, or preservation purposes. Supporters point to mysterious corrosion marks on granite walls deep inside, suggesting past exposure to water. Others highlight the so-called void discovered by the Scan Pyramids project as possibly part of this system a pressure chamber, rather than a hidden tomb. Still, it's not a theory that official archaeology is quick to endorse. Suggesting the Great Pyramid wasn't just a tomb, but a machine built on principles we still don't fully understand? That would rewrite a huge part of accepted history. And yet the architectural evidence, the precision, the sealed design, the layout doesn't rule it out. If true, this would mean that what we think of as a symbol of death may have been something entirely different. Not a monument to a dead king, but a living, breathing system that once harnessed the power of the earth itself. In the shadow of Egypt's most famous pyramids sits a crumbling monument few ever hear about: the Black Pyramid of Dashur. Unlike the clean, angular lines of Giza's monuments, this one looks like it's sinking into the desert, as if time itself just rejected its existence. Built during the Middle Kingdom by Pharaoh Amenemhat III, the Black Pyramid is one of the earliest attempts to construct a true pyramid, entirely out of mud brick and clay instead of solid stone. And, well, it didn't go well. From the outside, what remains is a jagged, sunken mass of dark rubble. But in its prime, it was an ambitious structure with polished limestone casing and an intricate inner network of corridors and chambers. It was also one of the few pyramids designed to house both the pharaoh and his queen. A rare dual burial pyramid, packed with symbolism and careful geometry. And yet it began to collapse almost as soon as it was finished. So why risk such an unstable design? Some believe the Black Pyramid was an experiment, a bold move away from traditional pyramid building that simply didn't hold up. Others suggest it was a rushed construction, built on soft, shifting ground, with poor materials chosen to cut costs or finish quickly. But here's where it gets interesting. Despite its structural failure, the Black Pyramid still included elaborate defense systems, trap chambers, and complex passageways, features that would have been useless in a building destined to fall apart. Why would the builders go through all that trouble for something that couldn't last? Some theorists claim the collapse wasn't accidental, that the pyramid's instability may have hidden deeper chambers that remain sealed off today. In fact, much of the site is still off-limits to the public. And though fragments of the capstone survive, no one knows exactly what's buried underneath. Even with its broken shape and decayed body, the Black Pyramid continues to guard secrets in the sand, largely ignored by textbooks and tourist brochures. Hidden between Giza and Saqqara lies one of Egypt's most restricted and least understood sites, the Pyramid of Zawyet El Arayan. Unlike its more famous neighbors, this one doesn't draw tourists or make it into documentaries because it's completely sealed off, buried inside a military zone. No public access, no excavation teams, just a cryptic pit surrounded by rumors, speculation, and, well, barbed wire. From what little is known, the structure was started during Egypt's 3rd dynasty, possibly under Pharaoh Nebka. But calling it a pyramid is a stretch. The only visible feature is a massive rectangular shaft carved directly into the bedrock. The pit is over 80 feet deep, perfectly cut and lined with granite blocks so precisely placed they seem machine cut. In the center, there's an enormous polished granite basin. Some say it resembles a sarcophagus. Others believe it had a far more technical purpose. And here's where it gets weird. No inscriptions, no carvings, no cartouche, nothing to officially connect it to any known pharaoh or burial. The bottom of the shaft is flooded year-round, obscuring what lies beneath. Some reports from early explorers claimed they saw evidence of additional chambers or tunnels, but no one's been allowed close enough in recent decades to verify anything. The area is now under full military control, supposedly for national security. But that's only fueled the theories. Some believe the pyramid was never unfinished, that it was deliberately buried or abandoned for reasons still unknown. Others speculate it was part of a secret network of structures with advanced functions, including energy storage, underground passageways, or pre-dynastic technology lost to time. Satellite images of the site show odd anomalies in the surrounding terrain, possible foundations of other structures, now lost under sand and secrecy. With no ongoing digs, no press coverage, and no formal research, the Pyramid of Zayat el-Aryan remains one of the most mysterious spots in Egypt. A forgotten monument walled off from history. Some say it's just another failed construction. Others believe it's a locked door to something we were never meant to find. That's about it. Share your theories in the comments about how you think the pyramids were built. For more useful information, watch other videos.